Hello everyone, welcome to your graduation webinar. I can't believe that it's already graduation for class 23. We're very saddened by the fact that unfortunately some of you will be leaving us soon. But this webinar is meant to talk about the guidelines and the exit checklist that I sent you in my email earlier before, and to go through the various steps and the requirements for you to be able to get your end of service award, for you to be able to attend the graduation ceremony. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please make sure to email me or Nick, depending on what questions you have. So as been mentioned in your email, your graduation is scheduled for January 8, 2018. I'm so sad about it.
Yeah, I was telling Sarah that you guys, class 23 is actually the first class that I helped usher in from the beginning, from pre-arrival. So you hold a very special place in my heart, and it'll be really surreal when January 8th rolls around.
Well, you, as you know, can always send in your questions, write in the comments, and we will make sure to address them. But starting off with the exit checklist guidelines, the first thing that we expect of you is to please, please, please mark your calendars. 8th January 2018 is when your graduation is. Please let your supervisors know, please let your host organizations know because we will be sending you details regarding your travel as well. So it is very important for us to make sure that you not only know about it in advance, but also your supervisors, so that they're no last minute. And it is mandatory as a fellow for you to be attending the graduation ceremony.
And just one quick note, I do know our partnerships team is sending reminders out to all of your supervisors, but just to be extra sure, I think you should put it on their calendars as well and check in with them and make sure they're aware. It can never hurt to have multiple checks on that.
So as been mentioned in the exit checklist, each one of you has, there's been a separate folder created for each one of you to submit your documents in. The link has been shared on the exit checklist. If you just simply click on it, you come across your folders, and all you're expected to do is with each of the submissions that you need to make, you just need to add those onto your folders. And if any one of you is having any trouble accessing that, please let me know so I can, if there's something that I need to change with the settings, I'll make sure I do that.
Yeah. Also, not to be nitpicky, but if you could please try to name your files in like a standard way, make sure you have your name on them. That'll just make our lives a lot easier.
So their folders are already made, but within those folders, for example, please make sure that you mention that this is the capstone project, or this is your evaluation form, or this is your, your blogs and webinars, whatever it is that is asked for you. You just make sure you mention what it is.
Yeah, you could even do like capstone_name and have that be the format, but whatever you want.
Yes, thank you. We're flexible to that. As long as you make your submissions, we are very open to it. So also, as we mentioned in the guidelines, that your submission date for everything that needs to be submitted before your graduation ceremony is December 8th. The reason why we want to make sure is that it's a month before you graduate, is just because I want to make sure that once I review the documents, and if Nick and I feel that there's something missing in terms of details, we make sure we give you 1 month in advance to add on to it. Also, I wanted to make sure, because I will be traveling back to Pakistan end of December, so I wanted to make sure that I have everything ready for you well in advance. So please make sure that you respect the deadlines that have been assigned. I know that it's literally a month from now also. I mean, we are flexible into accepting later some documents much later, but we would really appreciate it if you could follow the deadlines that we mentioned.
And just generally mid-December to late December and early January is just super busy because of the holidays and Christmas and New Year's Eve and everything. So it'll just probably make your lives easier too if you submit it early December, December 8th.
Great. So Nick and I are going to go through the checklist in detail, and we're going to discuss each of the points. And if you have any questions, please make sure that you mention them in the comments section, and we'll make sure that we answer them towards the end of our session. So beginning with housing, Nick, would you like to share your?
Yeah, so just going over the important points under housing, it's really, really important that you return your key. Especially if you're in Atlas Core housing, please return your key to the resident advisor. I will be sending out an exit checklist if you're in Atlas Core housing where that's one of the points, but especially since we've had some issues in the past and more recently with not having keys and some lockouts, it's just super important that you return your key. And that really applies to anyone. Make sure that you return your key to your landlord or make sure that you're following whatever procedure your landlord laid out for you in terms of your key. It's also, of course, very important to pay any outstanding utility bills and clean your rooms completely and wash everything. Now, this is especially if you're in Atlas Core housing again, because as you know, we have fellows that move in to these rooms after you've moved out, and you know we don't want them coming into a dirty room. We want to make sure they have a good impression, good welcome when they first arrive. But it's also important to pay those bills and clean the rooms thoroughly, because if you don't, you might not get your, well, if you're not in Atlas Core housing, you probably paid a security deposit, and you might not receive the full security deposit back if the landlord deems your room was messy or anything was broken or anything. In Atlas Core housing, there's no security deposit, but we can take up to $100 out for cleaning fees if need be. So just bottom line is make sure you leave the room really tidy before you leave. And then some final tips in terms of housing. Of course, you're gonna have a lot of stuff, big suitcases, so try to sell or donate things you don't need from your room, or you know, keep them. You can keep them in the house, but maybe just let your resident advisor or another fellow know.
A lot of we have new classes coming in March as well. As you know, we're going to be having 6 classes coming in a year. So I mean, my suggestion would be, you know, even to reach out. You could get more information and reach out to those fellows if they want some of your furniture. You know, it's a great way to get rid of things. But start planning in advance. I know that last minute getting rid of furniture it just takes a lot of time and it takes a toll. So I'm sure all of you know best. But this is our sincere advice to you that just make sure that the housing situation is.
Yeah, and just sorry, another point. Some of you might also have like laundry keys or cards, so make sure those are also given back to the resident advisor if you're not Atlas Core housing, or you follow the procedures that your landlord gave you. So basically, just make sure that everything's all set, your room's clean, so that you can avoid any other fines or anything. So now moving on to some financial things. It's important that you take care of all your health insurance bills and reimbursements. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I've become pretty well versed in helping fellows with some health insurance issues. I can help you log into your account and see if there are any outstanding balances, and we can work together to figure those out. Also, make sure that if you're leaving your US bank account open, let them know that you're leaving the country. Well, sorry, so you should let them know you're leaving the country either way. So if you are, if you're leaving it open or not. So you should either close it or change your contact information so that they don't keep mailing you things to an address you're not at in the US. And kind of side note to this is that we can transfer your end of service award to the bank we have on file for you in the US. So that is something to consider if it's kind of more efficient for us because we already have the information, although we can also transfer the money to a bank account back home. And that actually leads to the next point. If you do want the end of service award transferred back to your bank account back home, there's a wire transfer form that you need to fill out so that our finance team can input all that information and be able to wire the money to you. A quick tip on this is that, you know, it's recommended that you actually call your bank to try to confirm some of the details. We've had some delays in the past where fellows, where the bank account information maybe wasn't up to date, like what the fellows put down. So just good practice to call the bank and kind of verbally confirm some of the details, like the routing number and codes like that, just to be extra sure. Any other points on finance?
I think we're good. I think any kind of, for example, if any kind of loan that's been taken from Atlas Core or anything, please make sure that that's being sort of looked after, because if not, then as been mentioned, it's going to be taken out from your end of service award, and because obviously all the payments that are meant to be made will be made accordingly, and then deductions will happen accordingly. So a lot of the end of service award really does depend on your submissions with all of these requirements that we're sharing with you today. So please make sure that you do that so that we don't have to face any difficulty. And we want to give you the money and we want to give you the end of service award. So please make sure that that's been looked after. I think we could now move on to host organizations, and so basically we expect you to write thank you notes to your supervisors, to your colleagues, and you should share your contact info with them, just so you stay in touch with them even after you're done with your fellowship, and I'm sure they would expect the same from you as well. When it comes to travel, we want to make sure that you have your DS 2019 with you. You want to make sure that you are carrying some dollars while you're at the airport. Please don't make sure that you finish all of them before you leave, just in case you need some money at the airport. And make sure to please, with your ticket, go through your baggage restrictions. We've had a lot of fellows questioning us, even though it is a standard policy that you're only allowed to bring 2 bags in, and those are the 2 bags that you're going to be allowed to take back also. If there's any extra luggage that you have, you would be required to pay for it for yourself. Atlas Core will not be covering a 3rd baggage. So whether it's from your city, even if a satellite fellow, you're flying out from DC, from even San Francisco to DC, we will not be covering 3 bags. We will be covering the cost for only 2 bags.
Mm-hmm.
So
and we don't cover any overweight fees.
And overweight fees as well. So please, please take this into consideration. We follow the exact baggage restriction policies that all airlines have. So you would be expected to do the same. Well, after graduation ceremony, you will become officially a part of our alumni. So, but that does not mean that you do not stay in touch. Please do. We would love to hear your stories. We would love to hear about the amazing work that you're doing in your respective countries or elsewhere. And please make us a part of your journey as well, and stay connected. And with whatever you need, you know that you'll become part of the Atlas Core family, and we're here for you to help you, to guide you. And whoever you feel you would want to reach out to at Atlas Core, please make sure you do that.
And yeah, we really love hearing from the alumni and hearing about the amazing things that they're doing. I also know that Atlas Core is developing a strategic plan, and I think a big part of that is going to be enhancing our alumni engagement. So, be on the lookout for that. We're really hoping to engage our alumni even more and continue building these and nurturing these connections that you've made.
Great, thank you. I'm now going to move on to the fellowship completion guidelines, which includes, for example, your capstone project guidelines. Now, the reason why I did want to spend some time talking about the capstone is that we, I think early on, and I think that's from what I've been informed also, during orientation time, you are given guidelines as to you will be expected at the end of your year to do a capstone project, which could be in the form of a 2-pager essay that you write, a presentation, or even a 5-minute video, depending on what delivery method you choose and seems fit to tell you a story about your fellowship program. But do consider the Capstone project as a tool that you want to use even on your LinkedIn profile, or even for your future job references, to talk about the journey that you had in the US. I do receive Capstone projects where I have fellows sending me like 40 pictures, and that doesn't really talk about what your fellow experience was. And
we want it to be kind of a meaningful reflection on what the past year has been.
So talk about the conferences, the amazing learnings that you all had as an individual, whether it's from your host organization, whether it's from the city that you were living in, or whether it's from the people you've met, the other fellows you connected with. So speak about that during your Capstone project, and do take it not as an item off the checklist. It is a very important thing. It is, yes, a key component of your exit checklist, but it is also something that you could use for your future job references if you choose to do it the right way. So
and I think often people get so busy and preoccupied with other things that they don't take the crucial step back and kind of reflect on everything and how things are connected, what you've learned. So, which is a key step in growing and evaluating your learning. So, this is a natural point for you to do that.
So, as we mentioned, there are 3 delivery methods in which you can do your Capstone project. The first one being a 5-minute video, the second one being a 2-page essay, and the third one being a presentation of some sort. So we are very flexible and open to how you choose to describe your story or write about your journey. But as been mentioned by Nick, we just want it to be as meaningful as possible. So there are certain themes that you can choose to follow when you're doing your Capstone project. Those include what is the most important lessons you've learned during your fellowship, how has your perspective changed during your fellowship, and what are your plans for after the fellowship, and how this year spent in the US has influenced them. So depending on which pathway, which delivery method you use, please make sure that you are able to answer these questions that have been asked in the form of themes. And again, if you have any questions regarding the Capstone project, if you need any guidance regarding that, please feel free to reach out to us with all your questions. Again, once you're done with it, you're expected to upload your individual Capstone projects in your individual folders. So as we mentioned, each one of you has a folder made, and all you have to do is click on that folder and keep adding the stuff to it. So besides that, there is the graduation speaker and class superlative survey. Very, very, very important. This is because this is where you nominate for all the awards that are given out during the end of service ceremony. So from whether who do you think amongst your class is going to be the president of your country, who's going to be the class speaker, whose fellowship experience you think was most beneficial. So a lot of questions, but your answers again mean a lot, because I'm sure a lot of you want to win those awards. So
fierce competition.
It is a fierce competition, I have to say, with class 23. There are some quite dynamic leaders out there, but it's going to be an interesting turnout. I'm actually very excited to read the responses. Thankfully, I get to. So and see who's going to be the winner at the end of the day. Again, if you have any questions regarding that, please let me know. Lastly, we move on. Yeah.
So one of the final 2 things that you have to turn in are these 2 separate evaluations, and I want to explain them because I know it can get a little confusing. So one is a final evaluation of yourself, and this is on a Word document, and it's actually very similar to the mid-fellowship evaluation that you and your supervisor had to fill out around the 6-month mark of your time here. So this is where you rate yourself on certain criteria and your supervisor does the same. This is actually incredibly important to have on file since it is a requirement of the State Department. So we need that filled out with your supervisor's signature. So just try to be really on top of him about that. We need that. Again, State Department requirement. And if you don't turn it in, you won't get your end of service award. And then 2, there's an evaluation of Atlas Core as a program, and that's actually on a Google form. It's more of an online survey, so not the Word document. So this is, where you can provide feedback on the program as a whole, and we really do take this this feedback into consideration, and as we continue to enhance our monitoring and evaluation of our program. So please do fill that out as well. But basically, bottom line, 2 evaluations, final evaluation, the 12-month mark. Also, even if you're extending, we do need the final evaluation of yourself on file at the 12-month mark. So you do have to fill this out even if you're extending. And everyone needs to fill out the evaluation of Atlas Core, though if you're extending, you can actually wait to fill out that until your extension is over. But just to be completely clear, final evaluation, Word document for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think that moves us to towards the end of our discussion, because we just want to quickly go over luggage guidelines, progress report guidelines, and end of service transfers. Mm-hmm. So with luggage guidelines, as we mentioned, you're allowed to carry 2 bags, similar to the guidelines that were given to you when you came here. So with each one of you, you'll be allowed to carry 2 of them. So please, as we mentioned again, the reason why we're kind of emphasizing on this is because we always have some fellows who keep questioning and arguing with us as to, why aren't we allowing it? It's a simple policy. That's the guideline that was given to us before we came here, and that's the departure policy as well. So there will be no extra payments made for a 3rd baggage. If you have one, you would be required to pay for it yourself. And like Nick also mentioned, also for any extra weight that is there. Mm-hmm. Again, with we will be, I'm sure Nick will be reaching out to you regarding your tickets and everything as well. So I think with that, all the information that you share with him, I'm sure if you have any questions regarding that.
And just another point on this, please do send me the link to the airline's luggage policy, because then we can, if it does charge for a 2nd bag, we can actually add that money onto your final half stipend in January. Otherwise, we'd have to actually wait for you to submit the receipts, and then it would be added onto your end of service award, which can take a little longer to process just because there's a lot to check and check off and transferring overseas sometimes. So I would just recommend for all of you to send me that money. Sorry, don't send me any money. I mean, unless you want to. Just kidding. Send me the links to the luggage policy so we can add that to your last stipend. You don't have to wait for it to be added to your end of service award.
Okay. Obviously, those of you who are extending are not required to do this.
Yeah.
But those of you who are unfortunately leaving us in January are most definitely required to do this. The progress report guidelines, your program manager will be sharing your updated progress report with each one of you individually. And so it's a good time to make sure that you have written your blog entries, your webinars are filled out. Again, these points add to your end of service award. Nick is going to be calculating all of those. So just make sure that as many blogs as you can write, just take the next 2-3 months to...
Well, so there is, I'm not sure if we were as intentional about emphasizing this with Cost 23, so maybe we can have some leeway, but our policy is that we count up to 2 blogs per month, since we want you to be blogging, throughout the fellowship experience and not,
towards the end.
80,000 blogs at the end. Just get in touch with me if there's individual circumstances, but I would I would, I don't know, try not, I don't know. I'll be sending class 23's graduate progress reports by the middle of next week, if not sooner. And then we can just correspond on that chain, the email chain that's generated. Also, we are human, we might make mistakes, so just, you know, that's why we're sending it over for you to review before we finalize anything, so you can make sure that we've calculated everything correctly.
So you have November, December, and January. So just in case you want to, you know, you feel like you haven't written enough blogs, please make sure that you utilize these months and make sure you write them. So besides that, again, with webinars, as you know, you're required to fill in the feedback form for at least one of the webinar each month. So make sure you've done that also. Nick, could you kindly give it more information about the end of service award transfer?
Yeah. So basically, as Sarah was saying, we calculate the amount of the end of service award based off of the overall points you earned through attending Global Leadership Lab and the blogs and the webinars. And there's kind of like a scale of, you know, you can get up to $1,000, and then there's like kind of a range of points that fall under 1,000, 900, etc. But you don't, as we've emphasized, you won't actually get this money until you've fulfilled all of the exit checklist requirements. So submitting those evaluations, submitting the capstone project, and actually very crucially, you know, one of the like main requirements of the program from the beginning is that you return home, maybe not home, but that you leave the United States. That's part of the J-1 visa requirements and our designation with the State Department. So we actually don't transfer that money to you until we've confirmed with our travel agent that you have used the plane ticket and that you've left the country. So you won't be receiving the end of service award before you actually leave, because we need to check that you actually left. And please do be open and honest with us and transparent if your plans have changed since the beginning of the fellowship. We would much rather you start a discussion with us earlier if you plan to stay for whatever reason, so that we can discuss the implications of that, because ultimately our travel agent will let us know if you use the ticket or not anyway. So, you know, you can't really, it sounds rude, you can't really hide. So again, if your plans have changed, just please be transparent, and it's better to talk to us sooner than later.
Great. Also, I just want to talk a little bit about the ceremony itself. I think we've talked a lot about what's expected of you before the ceremony. But your graduation ceremony, which is planned on the 8th of January, you're going to have an end of service. Well, the whole day will be talking about, similar to orientation, from 9 to 5:30. You'll have sessions which will be reflecting upon your journey throughout the year as an Atlas School Fellow. And similar to orientation, you'll have sessions before you're exiting the country and going back. So there's going to be a session with Sean Bates as well, where the prime focus of the session is going to be about your journey next when you go back.
Quote unquote reverse culture shock.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool. You'll get to see the sheet you filled out when you first got here of how you kind of perceived American values and your values and the values of your home country, and you'll actually redo that sheet and then compare and see the growth or changes. And you also, if you remember at orientation, you wrote a letter to yourself right at the beginning of the whole experience and journey, and we will be returning those to you for you to get to read, and those are always really special, and just really cool to see, you know, your mindset when you first got here and how you've grown and changed.
Yeah. So far, I do want to add, however, that there might be a chance that we might be changing the venue of the graduation. For now, it's happening at the Wonder Bread, but if it does, we will obviously let you know well in advance. But foremost, please mark that date on your calendar, and please let your supervisors know I would hate to have someone tell me that I didn't know about this and for you to miss out, because as we mentioned very early on in our webinar, this is a requirement of your fellowship program. To attend the ceremony, it is mandatory for you to do that, and again for you to receive the end of service award. I know it eventually comes down, we're coming back to that again and again, but it is an important aspect of your fellowship journey to go through and to be able to talk about your amazing experience and let others know about it, because I surely for once want to know about how it went. So again, if you have any questions, I think we've saved up a lot of time, and I can totally imagine why if we don't have questions, but for now. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me and Nick regarding anything, regarding whether it's luggage, ticketing, it's regarding your capstone project, anything at all. Please let us know how we can facilitate you in this process. Thank you very much for listening to us. Do you have any last comments?
No, I think we covered everything.
Yeah, and so we've gone through the whole checklist. If there's anything else that you feel you want to discuss, please let us know, and hope you guys have a great week. And we look forward to meeting all of you on January 8th.
What day is it again?
January 8th.
Okay, well, thanks again so much, and have a great, well, and also happy first day of November. What? That's crazy. Anyway, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.